Welcome to our notes about the Protestant Reformation. Remember that you can stop and pause the video at any time if you need to take a second to write things down. You can rewind, you can go fast forward, your choice. Do it how you need to. Alright, so when we're talking about the Protestant Reformation, we're talking about the 1500s in Europe. And the first question we have is, why is this thing important? Okay, the first reason is that it's a permanent split within Christianity. Just like in 1054 we had the schism, or the split between the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, we're going to have another split here within the Catholic Church. And we're going to see the Protestant branches go off and never come back together again. 1/5 of all Christians today are Protestant. Think of how many people might be Protestant. That includes branches such as Methodists, Baptists, Anglicans, Episcopals, Lutherans. All of those kind of churches that are not Catholic but are still Christian are called Protestant. The other important thing is that the Protestant Reformation leads to a continuation of questioning authority. Remember, we saw in the Renaissance how questioning authority began, and we were just kind of questioning old traditions that people had held for a long time. Now we're questioning the church and the power of the church, which is going to soon lead us into questioning authority or the government, which is part of the Enlightenment. So that's an important thing coming down the road. Now, what's causing the Reformation? A couple things causes it. First thing is church corruption. Churches were selling indulgences, the Catholic Church. When we see church with a big C, at this point in time, we mean the Catholic Church. And so indulgence are a pardon or a forgiveness for one's sins. So you can have a minor sin, not like murdering someone, but a minor sin like not respecting your parents, and can go to the preacher and say, I'd like to buy an indulgence to be forgiven for not respecting my parents. And the preacher would say, okay, here you go. You'd give them the money and they'd give you a little piece of paper that says, you've been forgiven for this sin. It doesn't work for multiple sins. This is how the church is raising money for all of their building projects, like rebuilding the cathedral in Rome, St. Peter's Basilica. They're also forbidding usury. Usury is the practice of charging high interest rates for loans. So in order to get a loan, you promise to pay back the money that you borrow and a little bit of interest, which means that people are more likely to give loans because they're going to get a little bit of money, like 5% on the interest. Well, merchants were upping the interest rate, so they were charging like 15% or 20%. And the church said this is not okay, and so they made it illegal to use usuries or charging high interest rates. And so the merchants are not giving out loans, they're unable to get loans, and so it's making it really hard for them to make money. So they're getting really frustrated because they can't make money. We also have a lot of low morals and education among the clergy. Okay, they're not well educated, they aren't doing a good job interpreting the Bible for their parishioners or church members. They may go out drinking, they may go visit prostitutes, things like that, where the clergy is supposed to be, or the clergy or priests are supposed to be celibate. Okay, so they're not doing good things. So with indulgences, we're making people mad who can't pay to get forgiveness. With usuries, we're making the merchants mad, and we're making everybody mad with low morals and education. Another reason is going to be political. Okay, the church has a huge amount of political power. Okay, they have political power over the king, so the church is more important than a king right now in the 1500s, and they have a huge amount of wealth, and this is causing a lot of conflict. The Germans and the English nobility are Catholic as well as the Italians, and yet the Italians dominate the church. They're the only ones becoming cardinals and popes, which are the higher level offices within the church. The Germans and the English say, well, we're Catholic, so why can't we have cardinals and popes that are German and English? And so they're getting really frustrated with only Italians being able to do anything in the church. So now we're making not only the poor people plus the merchants mad, we're making the northern Europeans and the nobility mad. And then finally, we're going to see some influence of the Renaissance help cause the Reformation. We're going to see things like humanism, the idea of the importance of the individual, so it's no longer just a group. One individual can make a change. We're going to see the printing press help. With more Bibles available means more people can read, more people start interpreting the Bible for themselves and start to say, well, I don't really agree with how that priest interpreted the Bible on the Sunday Mass. And that's going to change and lead to the questioning. We also have the changing cultural values. We see the rise of secularism or non-religious things or worldly things. We're going to see the humanism. We're going to see people starting to question old traditions in the church and all of those things. So these lead to the Reformation. Now, normally we think of Martin Luther as starting the Reformation, but there are two guys who protested first against the Catholic Church. The first one is Jan Hus. He's from the Czech Republic. Jan means John in Czech. And he says the Bible has more authority than the church or the Pope. So the Word of God, what is written in the Bible, has more authority than anything that the Catholic Church says or anything that the Pope says. How does the Pope feel about that? He's not going to be too happy about that. So he takes Jan Hus, excommunicates him, and when they catch him, they burn him at the stake, like you can see in the picture. Secondly, we're going to have John Wycliffe, who is from England. He argues that Christ, or Jesus Christ, is the true head of the church, not the Pope. Okay, and this is a big deal because, again, it's making the Pope kind of mad, who says, hey, I'm in charge here, not Christ. And so, once again, John Wycliffe is going to be declared a heretic, someone who goes against the teachings of the church. He is excommunicated, and he is also going to be burned alive. Okay. Now, we get to our friend Martin Luther. Martin Luther is a German monk. Okay, he lives in northern Germany, an area known as Wittenberg. And there's a new preacher come to town named Johann Tetzel, and Tetzel is selling indulgences, and Martin's getting pretty mad about Tetzel selling all of these indulgences. Tetzel was in your readings, so it's someone you need to know that's not in the notes, but in your readings. Now, Martin Luther is going to object to the sale of indulgences. He's going to say you cannot buy indulgences in order to get salvation or get to heaven. He's going to say that the Bible is the ultimate authority and not the Pope. So he's agreeing with Jan Hus and John Wycliffe. Salvation by faith alone, meaning you can only get to heaven based on your faith, not based on your good works or the good things that you do or buying indulgences. Salvation by faith alone. And he says all humans are equal before God. This is going to anger the nobility a little bit because he's saying that peasants are on the same level as the nobility before God. Whereas the nobles are saying, no, I think peasants are way below us in terms of our hierarchy here on earth, and I think God sees it the same way. So Martin Luther is going against the church. Now, he is not saying, hey, let's split off, create a new church. He is arguing for reform of the church. He wants to be Catholic and remain Catholic, but he wants to change some things up. So what does he do? He writes what are called the 95 Theses. It's a list of 95 problems of the Catholic Church, and he's openly calling for church to reform itself. Now, he posts this on the church door in Wittenberg. Now, what you have to understand is that at this time, the church door is the one place in town that everybody sees, because everybody is Catholic, everybody goes to Mass, and so they all pass through the church doors. So it's kind of like the bulletin board for the town where everybody's going to see the information. So if you need to know the town news or need to know what's on sale at the grocery that day, you go to the church door and look. That's where everything is posted. So Luther posting things on the church door is basically his way of making sure that every single person in town is going to see his 95 Theses, his call for reform, and what are the problems of the Catholic Church. So these actions start what we call the Protestant Reformation. Here's our picture of Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the church door. And in class, what we are going to do is read through some of the 95 Theses. Okay, so this is something done in class. And so what you need to remember is how to remember that it's the Protestant Reformation. Well, Martin Luther protested for reform, which caused the Protestant Reformation. So protest, protest, reform, reform. Okay? That's how you can remember he's arguing for reform, not a whole new religion. Eventually, we know that he's going to be excommunicated by the church. If you actually open the PowerPoint on your computer, you can click the link for the YouTube video. It's a song by History Teacher, one of our favorite songs that we see in class. And Martin Luther is so he's excommunicated, which means he's kicked out of the Catholic Church, and he is protected by one of the Protestant princes in the Holy Roman Empire, and he basically ends up splitting off from the Catholic Church when he is excommunicated, and his followers become known as Lutherans. Okay, they take his last name and they put an AN at the end and become known as Lutherans. Now, that ends our first part of the notes. Okay, we're going to do a second video to talk about John Calvin and Henry VIII and everything that comes with that. So check back in a sec for the new video.